Thank you all for coming. My name is Medea Benjamin. I'm with the group CODEPINK, one of the organizers of this, and we want to thank all of our co-sponsors, the Campaign for Peace and Democracy, Center for Inquiry, Coalition to End U.S.-Saudi Alliance, Fellowship of Reconciliation, Food Not Bombs, Friends Committee on National Legislation, Historians Against the War, Institute for Policy Studies, Just Foreign Policy, No Drones, Middle East Crisis Committee, Peace Action, People Demanding Action, Popular Resistance, Roots Action, the Gulf Institute, the Markaz, The Nation Magazine, U.S. Labor Against the War, United for Peace and Justice, United Methodist General Board of Church and Society, United National Anti-War Coalition, Upstate Coalition to Ground the Drones and End the Wars, Veterans for Peace, Voices for Creative Nonviolence, Westpac Foundation, WNY Peace Center, World Beyond War, and WILF DC branch. So we are really excited, and many of these peace organizations that came together realized that after working on these issues of crisis in the Middle East since 9/11, things have only gotten worse. And one of the issues that we have not focused on, I would say the elephant in the room, is Saudi Arabia, the country that is the closest Arab ally of the United States and is most responsible for spreading extremism. So here we are. I would say this is a first. There have been conferences on Saudi Arabia, but never before, I think, bringing together academics, the people from the legal societies, and peace activists to not only look at what are the problems, but to be brainstorming together about what kind of actions we can take. Can you raise your hand if you plan to be here tomorrow? Wow, fantastic. So as you know, today is the learning and the sharing day, and we are all at different levels. Who here considers yourself an expert on Saudi Arabia? We've got one. I hope the two panelists in the front consider yourselves experts. That's why we invited you. So as you can see, for a lot of us, this is really a learning experience. How many people are from the region? Okay, so we've got quite a number of people. And we did want to have a really diverse group of speakers. One of the diverse elements that we're missing are people who want to speak in favor of the Saudi government. Now, we did ask them. We asked people from the Saudi embassy to come. They refused. We asked people from the US State Department to come. And we had a lot of back and forth with them. They wanted to know every speaker that was speaking. They wanted to know every single detail. And we furnished them with every detail until at the end they said, no, we cannot send anybody to this conference. I think that's shameful. I mean, they are our public servants. They should have to come and account for their policies in front of the public, but they refused. So we also want to say that not only did they refuse to come, but they intimidated a lot of the speakers that we had invited who were Saudi citizens. And this is really serious. They are on US soil and they act like they are in Saudi Arabia. They went to visit some of the speakers early on that had said that they could come and threatened them and threatened their families back home so that those speakers had to drop out. We had a woman who was going to join us by Skype from Saudi Arabia. She was threatened and had to drop out. So I think it's important for you to understand how courageous it is to have people from Saudi Arabia who are here speaking. And before we even start, let's give a hand to the Saudis who are here. I also want to say that they intimidated a lot of the young Saudis who were here on scholarship who wanted to come, and were told that even attending this conference might be dangerous for them. So we don't know if there are any people from the embassy who showed up to be in the audience. Anybody here from the Saudi embassy? So they might be here anyway, and if you are here, we welcome you. We welcome dialogue, and we think that you would learn a lot from our speakers. We do have an amazing array of people you're going to hear from today. Some of them are from Saudi Arabia and the region and will talk about the internal conditions. Some of them will speak about Saudi's foreign policy, like in Bahrain, Yemen, and Syria. And some of them will tell us about the consequences of the spreading of the ideology of Wahhabism. Now, I wanted to be clear that we are not here to add fuel to the fire of Islamophobia. There is a growing hatred around the world of people who are from the Muslim community, and we certainly want to counter that hatred. We are only talking about a narrow, extremist interpretation of Sunni Islam that is Wahhabism. It is this ideology that forms the basis of the repressive Saudi regime and has formed the ideological underpinnings of groups like Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State. We also want to say that criticizing Saudi Arabia should not be equated for support for Iran. Many of the same abuses that we cite for Saudi Arabia are similar in Iran. But the criticism of Iran we hear every day. We hear that in the media. We hear that when we go to Congress. And we hear that in terms of policies that are constantly attacking and punishing Iran, but rewarding the Saudis. We also want to say that since most of us here are US citizens, our primary job is to focus on our own government and our own government's policies and the negative role that it has been playing in the Middle East for decades. This is especially important during this election season, when we hear candidates talk about carpet bombing, waterboarding, tearing up the Iran nuclear deal, and we may well end up with two candidates, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, who might drag us deeper and deeper into wars in the Middle East. In terms of focusing on the US relationship with Saudi Arabia, you've probably seen from the slides in back of me, Bush and Obama in very cozy positions with the Saudi rulers. This has been a relationship that dates back to the founding of the Saudi regime in 1932, a relationship that has survived 12 presidents, a relationship that is certainly bipartisan, Democrat and Republicans. This relationship started out on dependence on Saudi oil. But that's no longer a justification, if it ever were, for the cozy relationship with Saudi Arabia, given that we only get about 10 to 12% of our oil these days from Saudi Arabia. The dependence really has switched from dependence on oil to dependence on weapons sales. According to the White House in 2014, quote, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is the largest US foreign military sales customer, with active and open cases valued at approximately $97 billion. Just let that soak in for a minute. So about $100 billion of weapons sales, Saudi Arabia being the #1 purchaser of US weapons. Weapons manufacturers from Boeing, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics, McDonnell Douglas have been pushing these sales to offset military spending cuts in the United States and in Europe. Those weapons are being used today to bomb the people of Yemen, including cluster bombs that have been banned by the world community. And the United States is directly coordinating air operations in Yemen, making the US complicit in what I would say are war crimes. One of the reasons this relationship is barely questioned is the Saudi lobby. How many of you have heard of AIPAC? Okay, AIPAC is not the Saudi lobby. AIPAC is the pro-Israeli government lobby. But we all know AIPAC. We don't know about the Saudi lobby. It is more covert. But the Saudis have spent millions and millions and millions of dollars hiring the largest public relations firms in the world like Edelman, hiring law firms like Squire Patton Boggs, hiring former senators like Norman Coleman to be licensed foreign agents for the Saudi government. The Saudis also finance universities around the United States, such as Harvard, Yale, Georgetown, Princeton, Berkeley. They give money to nonprofits that range from the Clinton Foundation, you've heard of that one? The Atlantic Council, the Middle East Policy Council, the Middle East Institute, even the Carter Center, which has a major program for empowering women and girls, takes money from the only country in the world that doesn't allow women to even drive. And how ironic is it that the Saudis lavish money on think tanks when they don't want their own citizens to think? This checkbook diplomacy has brought either silence about Saudi abuses or praise for Saudi, quote, reforms and the Saudi, quote, stabilizing influence in the region. But now we are entering a very particular moment that I'm sure our speakers will talk about today, which is the weakness of the Saudi regime. The Saudi economy is in trouble, with oil prices plunging to below $30 a barrel. The Saudis are no longer able to buy the complicity of their citizens. And the war in Yemen is costing the Saudis about $6 billion a month with no end in sight. The decrease in revenue, estimated to be a $98 billion budget deficit this year, has meant that the Saudis have had to increase the prices of fuel and electricity and cut some of the benefits that the Saudi people have been receiving from the petrodollars. This internal turmoil is complicated by the 79-year-old King Salman putting so much power into his 30-year-old son, who is the deputy crown prince in charge of both the defense ministry and in charge of the economy, and said by many to not only be young and experienced, but also to be very rash and unstable. This destabilizing influence also is coming from the Islamic State, the very group that is founded on the same Wahhabi ideology, has called the Saudi rulers hypocrites, says they are betraying Islam, and is launching attacks inside Saudi Arabia as well. So here we are with an unstable regime, a repressive regime, one that continues to be the great US ally, and our weekend job is to figure out what we can do. I want to start out this day's conference by planting some ideas that we will talk about throughout the next 2 days, and particularly tomorrow. One is the issue of weapons sales. It's very exciting that our European counterparts have done such a great job pushing their countries that just last week, February 25th, the European Parliament passed a resolution calling for an embargo on weapons sales to Saudi Arabia. We should hear some clapping for that. We have in the audience, where did Rewan go? Over here, Rewan, who is a representative from Avaz, who is very active in that campaign and got over 700,000 signatures to push the European Parliament. We're very anxious to talk to her and others about how we can do similar kinds of things. Let me make it clear, though, that the resolution in the European Parliament does not mean that the European countries will stop selling weapons. It is non-binding, but it sends a very powerful message, and these issues are very hot and being debated intensely in the UK, in Germany, in France, and in Sweden. We are in touch with many of these groups and want to, coming out of this summit, create an international coalition to ban weapons sales to Saudi Arabia. We have some groups here who have been working on the issue of supporting political prisoners. Can you raise your hands if you've worked on this issue? So we have people from Amnesty, from Human Rights Watch, from many organizations. And we are very honored to have with us here the son of Sheikh Nimr, Mohammed Al-Nimr. Where is he? Back in the back there. who you will hear from later today, we want to express our condolences for the death of your father. It is an example of why we need to have a much more effective global community to put pressure on the Saudis to stop killing peaceful dissidents. We also have groups that are working on a very critical issue, which is why are the 28 pages from the 9/11 report that came out in December of 2002 still declassified after all these years? These 28 pages deal with the funding for the 9/11 attacks, and former Senator Bob Graham, who was the head of the commission that wrote the report, said the 28 pages primarily relate to who financed 9/11 and point a very strong finger at Saudi Arabia as being the principal financier. We have, is Terry Rockefeller here? She's coming. There's Terry back in there. Terry is a member of a wonderful group called September 11th Families for Peaceful Tomorrows, people who lost their loved ones on 9/11. And we thank you for being here, Terry. And Terry was part of a lawsuit to try to release those 28 pages. I just talked last night, Terry, to some of the Jersey girls, the widows who have been working so hard on this issue over the years, and they are really anxious to work with us starting early next week. They say it is an absolute abomination that the US public does not have the right to see what the commission that we paid for came up with, that after the Bush administration, they thought the Obama administration would declassify these pages. They still have not done that. That is something we have to work on. And finally, I want to say that there are other ideas that we want to gather from you. We're really glad that many of you will be here for tomorrow. If you can't be here tomorrow, we're going to post some papers in the hall for you to write down your ideas. We need more ideas of kinds of campaigns we can do. Some people are working on a campaign now to ban Saudi Arabia from the Summer Olympics in Rio. Others want to look at the possibilities of a code of conduct for US companies that are working in Saudi Arabia. What if all companies had to detail the standards they will abide by when working in Saudi Arabia, such as non-discrimination against women, minorities, migrant workers? What if car companies were pressured to put out statements saying that women should be able to drive their cars? What if retail stores in Saudi Arabia should say that they should be able to employ women under the same conditions as men? What if restaurants and cafes like Starbucks said their clients should be able to frequent their businesses in a non-discriminatory fashion? Unlike the Starbucks that recently put up a sign in the door saying, "Please no entry for ladies. Only send your driver to order. Thank you." So we look forward to getting your suggestions. We look forward to building these campaigns. And this weekend, as we delve into the inner workings of the Saudi regime, let's remember that while our government is supporting the kings and the princes, we must be supporting the human rights activists, the pro-democracy advocates, the lawyers calling for a more just legal system, the migrant workers demanding their rights, the women who want to overturn the guardianship system. These are our counterparts. These are the ones who deserve our support, our friendship, and our admiration. Thank you so much. So we are very excited that we are starting off today with two fantastic speakers. The first one, Ali Al-Ahmed, is the director of the Institute for Gulf Affairs. He's a Saudi scholar and expert on Saudi political affairs, including terrorism, Islamic movements, Wahhabi Islam, Saudi political history, Saudi-American relations, and the Al Saud family history. He's a writer and a public speaker on Saudi political issues. I am very honored to consider him a friend, and I also want to say that he's one of the most courageous people I have ever met. So I would want you to give the warmest of warm welcomes to Ali Al-Ahmed. Yes, stand up and welcome him. This is courage right here. Ali, you want to come over here? Do you want to speak from here or you want to? Let's test this.
How long?
10, 15?
It's kind of short. It doesn't pick up. No, it doesn't. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Sabah al-khair. I also wanted to say Sabah al-khair or Masa al-khair to the people who are watching online in Arabic because a lot of people back home are watching. صباح مساء الخير لأبناء شعبنا الذين يشاهدون هذا البث الحي وإن شاء الله نكون صوتا لكم جميعا. اعذروني راح أتكلم بالإنجليزي. So I wanted to start by thanking my good friend Medea, whom I knew for many years, and in our work all these years, especially recently, I think one of the most interesting and successful and maybe very popular video of us when the Saudi king showed up in May 14th, and in a moment's notice, I decided that to go and confront his motorcade of 600 Mercedes, and Medea and Ty, they said, yeah, we will come. And in 20 minutes, they were there in front of the Four Seasons. So 3 of us were basically standing tall and proud before hundreds, maybe thousands of Saudi officials, from the king to his son to many ministers. And luckily, although we didn't have the time to video ourselves, luckily those who are on the Saudi side videoed us and spread that video everywhere. It went so viral, it was unbelievable. And you were called homeless, I believe. Yes, and Thais too.
You paid me to do it.
And I paid you, and they were asking her that how much did he pay you? We'll pay you to stop. And I said, she's actually well-to-do, She has more money than me. Sorry, but that's the reality. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry, obviously, but good for you. So no, she's not homeless, ladies and gentlemen. I may be homeless, soon. I don't know. Anywho's, today is a serious topic. We are here to thanks to the efforts and dedication of Medea and her crew. And we want to thank her. I want to thank her on behalf of our people, because this is not an easy thing to do. When I first came to Washington, nobody wanted to talk about Saudi Arabia, our allies. Until September 11, it started to change. I didn't get any meetings before September 11, but after September 11, I got a lot of meetings. I got a lot of press about so many things. Unfortunately, it hasn't changed the policy. And I'll tell you why. There is a problem in the United States as a political structure that they have supported and protected not only the Saudi monarchy. And I wanted to make sure that when we say the Saudis, we're talking about the monarchy, because there is a people there. That's our people that we are standing for. And those are our people from the south, from the center, from the north, from the east, from different backgrounds. These are our people, and we don't call these people the Saudis. The Saudis is the ruling family that has hijacked our country, hijacked our religion, and created this catastrophe, the terrorism, the extremism that has stolen and usurped our oil revenue, this massive revenue, over $15 trillion over the past 80 years, that has gone where? It has been taken, spent, and bad things, not to support our people, to educate them, to build schools, to build roads, and so on. This monarchy has used the money even to take over decisions by American officials. It's unfortunate, something I call Carterism. I call Carterism, why? Because even Carter, who calls himself a human rights advocate, was used, and it continues to be used, to shield the Saudi government, the Saudi monarchy actually, from the standards. And it's unfortunate that the United States, a country built on what? On a revolution, after a revolution against an absolute monarchy. Go to the National Archives here in Washington and look at the first document. It is the document, a letter by that absolute monarch, British monarch, who called the American revolutionaries the same derogatory terms that the Saudi government calls me and call my friend Abdulaziz Al-Hussan and call other activists who are seeking. I'm not speaking on somebody else's behalf, but I am dedicating my life to ending the Saudi monarchy and any absolute monarchy we have in the region. I'm a proud Muslim. In my religion, monarchy is forbidden. Islam forbids monarchy. Anyone who tells you otherwise, they're lying to you. Islam is an equal opportunity religion. You can be the son of a farmer and rule that country if people chose you. In our Islam, people choose who serve them, not rule them. The word amil in Arabic means servant or worker, is used by early Muslims for those who take positions of power. Today, we have a monarchy that is inheriting us from one person to another, from a father to son, from brother to brother. The words of Sheikh Nimr are powerful on this. The words of Dr. Muhammad Al-Qahtani on this, who said, we are the people. Dr. Abdullah Al-Ahmed, who these people executed or in prison, these are intellectuals. One of the most beautiful words that everyone should remember, that Dr. Abdullah Al-Ahmed said, "Ash-sha'b huwa waliyul amr." The people are the rulers. And that is the fact, that is the basis of our movement. This is supposedly was the movement that this country, the United States of America, was built upon. A rule by the people, of the people, for the people. Where is that principle that was set forth by the early founding fathers of this country? We need to take America back. Not the Trump way, but the way where the original founders of this country had planned to do. Why? Because the United States supports the largest absolute monarchy in the world. The largest concentration of absolute monarchies in the world are in the Gulf. Nowhere else we have absolute monarchies protected by the United States of America, and who is a republic built on overthrowing or revoluting against an absolute monarchy, by the United Kingdom and other governments, by the French Republic, who yesterday gave the most horrible human rights abuser, the founder of terrorism, Mohammed bin Nayef, an award for fighting terrorism. This is amazing. That's a problem. This is not about our people alone. This is about your people. When the Saudi government and the Saudi monarchy is able to protect a rapist in the United States, a person from another person who enslaved people because they happen to be from the ruling family, so they're okay. We don't prosecute them. We let him get off. You cannot do that. This is Carterism. When you even change your laws and suppress your own laws to please a foreign power, a foreign absolute dictatorship. The Saudi monarchy's penetration of the United States political regime is very clear. And that's done how? Just like Medea said, $35 million to Jimmy Carter, over $50 million to the Clintons. I don't know how much money to the Bush family, through business deals, through grants and gifts and so others, through taking over Yale and Harvard and Georgetown. These are the seats of American education and academia. In my case, I went to school in the University of St. Thomas. The editor of the magazine interviewed me for a cover story. Oh, you are one of our alumni who had made it big in Washington. We need to put you on our cover. The story was done, completed, but alas, the president of St. Thomas University, Father Dennis Deese, a Catholic priest, pulled the story. Oh, because we don't want to upset the Saudis. This is how much influence you have. And that's why I said it's about you. It's not about us. It's about your children. Do you want an absolute monarchy that hijacked Islam and converted it to an evil religion? Islam is not like that. Saudi Islam is not Islam. Okay? It's an Islam of an absolute monarchy. A monarchy that prevents women from exercising, from kicking a ball, from driving, from being a full human being, recognizing their own self-worth. You want that monarchy to take over your education, your life, you will be in trouble. I mean, this country must take itself back to the people, not to the elites and clique of this country. The United States spends over $250 billion of your money to protect the Gulf monarchies. Why? They said, oh, to protect the oil flow. Well, the oil flow from the United States over 2015 from the Gulf did not even reach 50 billion. So you spent 225 billion to secure 50 billion? Well, is that a winning combination? No. How they do it? In America, politics work on money. You know that. You pay senators, you pay you pay a congressman, a governor to get your stuff done. And that's how it's done. The Saudis knew this, figured this out. They pay certain people to get their foreign policy, to get even their domestic policy. I am an example of that. For 6 years, the United States government banned me from travel, with no explanation, by the way. Banned me from work, without explanation. I said, why? Can you give me am I a terrorist? Come on. If I am, tell me about it. What did I do? Of course, nothing. Until I threatened to bring this out to the public. They gave me my travel document. They gave me my work permit. And this is in the United States of America, in Washington, D.C. This is not somewhere else. I am a living example of that. That's why we have to really, as an American people, I call upon you to rise and call upon you to take your country back. The Saudi war, oil war now, is hurting you. The oil is not only hurting our people, who are now suffering all kind of things. We have some students here who are on scholarship, who are losing their scholarships. Why? Or people who could not get their scholarships. Why? Because the Saudi government doesn't have enough money to give them and decided that they should just go home and sit around and, they prevent our people from studying. But the Saudi oil war is hurting the United States. It's hurting the alternative energy. All these alternative energy companies who can make money, who can survive because the oil prices are high, now they cannot do it. So we are preventing humanity from producing an alternative to the fossil fuel option. The environment has been damaged by this. Imagine this huge problem that has been created by the Saudi monarchy bringing the oil prices down. Many people, many Americans, many Canadians lost their jobs in these companies, oil companies that are able to produce and to hire people because the oil prices were high. What happened? Why isn't the United States speaking? Why are Mr. Obama, Mr. Liberal, Harvard graduated Obama speaking about it or doing something about it? Oh, because we're selling weapons, but we are losing more money because of this Saudi war. That's why I said, we must, I don't want to take much time, but the Saudi government and monarchy support to terrorism is clear to us as people, to most of us at least, or many of us. I wouldn't say most, I would say many of us. And without taking the Saudi monarchy out, you will continue to have terrorism. You will continue to have that threat. And unfortunately, maybe it's a decision by some clique in this country to keep the Americans down by keeping the threat of terrorism high so they can do whatever they want. And that's why, again, we need to take this country back. Do whatever you can to take your country back. Without removing the Saudi monarchy from power, terrorism will continue. The Saudi monarchy is to terrorism what the Soviet Union was to communism. Did you hear anything about communism after the collapse of the Soviet Union? No. There is no red threat anymore. This is exactly the same. And it's important to empower our people to rule themselves, to build a modern state. Our people want to rule themselves. That's why we have thousands of political prisoners. We have Dr. Al-Qahtani. That's why Sheikh Nimr was executed. Many people, Al-Ahmed, Al-Karim, I can stay here and speak the names of many people. I would not be done because we have a lot of people. And my friend Abdulaziz Al-Hussan knows this very well because he worked in a lot of these cases. Okay? And finally, I want to conclude by saying that it's really important that you support us because you are freer. You're allowed to speak at least. We can't do that in our country. People lost their lives just speaking out or tweeting sometimes. So removing the Saudi monarchy is our goal. We need your support any way you can. There is the coalition to end the U.S.-Saudi alliance and SaudiUS.org. Please go there, help us. Go to the CODEPINK, the Gulf Institute, to any organization that's working on that. And we are working also on kicking the Saudis out of the Olympic Committee. We have the No Women, No Play campaign. Go to their website and buy a shirt, support. We need to liberate our people from the Saudi monarchy. We need to liberate our Islam from state control, Saudi Arabia or otherwise, because Islam belongs to the people, not to any government. And that is not only good for us, for our people, but good for every single one of you, to your children, to your grandchildren. And I say thank you very much again for having me. And I apologize for taking a little bit of time, but thank you so much. Thank you again. Ma salama.
Thank you so much, Ali, and without you, we would never have done this summit, and we look forward to working with you afterwards. Our next speaker, I am also extremely honored that he came to join us. Abdulaziz bin Mohammed Al-Hussan is a lawyer and reformist born in Riyadh. In late 2011, following the Arab Spring, he began to represent cases of political detainees pro bono, and many detainee families began to approach him for help. He's worked as a scholar in the Center for Constitutional Democracy at Indiana Law School. He is working as a scholar in the Iowa College of Law. He recently founded the Diriyah Institution in Washington, D.C., a nonprofit dedicated to studies of the Arabian Peninsula with a focus on constitutional law reform, political science, and history. I also want to say that he drove here yesterday. How many hours? 14 hours to get here to be with us. So get up again and give a warm, warm welcome to Mohammed. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you. Thank you for having me here. My story with human rights started when I was 12 years old, sitting in the back of my brother's car. I heard two of my older brothers talking that I heard two of my brothers said that our father just died, but one of my brother is in prison for political reason, and he couldn't get out to bury our father. From that point on, I don't know exactly what I promised myself, but I will never be in the side of the oppressor. I always be in the side of the oppressed. Today, I'm going to talk to you about 4 subtopics. I'll keep them short. First one, I'll give you overview of the legal and political system in Saudi Arabia. Second is the biggest human rights violation in Saudi. Third is the international relation between government and the Saudi government. Fourth, how to resolve this case. The Saudi was founded in 1932. It's based mainly in Islamic law. However, the law itself, it's more like civil law. So in 92, we have a basic law of governors. It could be called as a constitutional document. It's not constitution. In Article 44 of that basic law of governors stated that the king has the ultimate authority. So we have 3 branches, at least names, executive, legislative, and the judiciary. But all of them go back to the king, and that's the main issue here. So none of them is actually independent in any way. So there is the judiciary independence is stated in the laws, in different laws, in the basic law of governors, in the judiciary law, and in other laws. But it's not actually independent. It's influenced by the monarchy when it's come to political or civil rights. However, as a business sector, it's quite advanced, to be honest. So many of the business cases, they are tried with fairness, but not in the political and civil. So how did we end like this? I think when when the state was founded in 1932, it was a very good project in a different ways. Of course, whenever you establish something, there are wars, like any other state has been established mostly. In 1964, we have a coup in Saudi. King Saud was removed from office and King Faisal came to office. King Saud at that time, he has an alliance with different princes within the monarchy. They are representing the reformist wing. They had a constitution, actually. There was a draft constitution in 96, and it was stated, or the radio, they mentioned that there will be a constitution published by the Saudi in 1960. That constitution draft is absolutely good way if we started from the 1960s, because there were some kind of parliament, there was some kind of freedom or free civil society organizations. So that didn't happen. 64, King Faisal and his alliance have taken over. And from that point on, 1975, King Faisal was assassinated. Then the Sudairi Sevens controlled the government, mostly from Sudairi Seven is 7 princes from the same mother, and they are the sons of bin Saud. Is led by King Fahad. So from 75 until 2005, they controlled everything. And even though that there was a lot of violations of human rights from that point on, from the 64 up to 2005, at least there was some kind of political stability. You have to say that. That's a fact. There are wars, the Gulf Wars and the others, but there was some kind of political stability. From 2005 up to now, not up to now, actually, up to 2015, so King Abdullah ruled, and there were the wings, like the Sudairi Seven has been marginalized in different areas. So now in Saudi, we don't have stability in the monarchy because we don't know who is going to be the next king, even though that the crown prince is the cousin of the current king. but still one of the brother of the kings has more authority to be a king than him. Because of the system is going from brothers to brothers and now is to cousins, that's the issue. So my focus, me and most of the reformists in Saudi, are actually not to overthrow the monarchy. It's to have kind of limited monarchy. I have all the right to get revenge, but revenge will not get us anywhere. We seek justice for all. We seek reform. The collapse of the Saudi monarchy is not good for the people, is not good for the international relationship. However, the Saudi monarchy itself now, it's taking itself to going to collapse. So, so we have a lot of, just to end this topic, we have a lot of laws coming from the civil system. So it's coming from France, Egypt, and Saudi. So the people who present codification as solution to the Saudi issue, no, codification is not the issue. Codification means that we have more laws to protect the right of the people, or we have more laws to do something. So many of the laws, it has been codified in the last 10 years, and the civil and political specter is actually against the people interests. One of them, which is very bizarre one, is the anti-terrorism law. So many special acts in this laws or many articles, if you support democracy in Saudi, you will be considered as a terrorist. So this is not helping. So codification is not helping. The whole system is not looking at justice from a good way, because it's in its own benefits to keep it this way. And I have to mention something here. The Saudi is not like other oppression. Sometimes good, sometimes it's bad, but they are soft oppression. So in a way, they are not like the Soviet Union or other South American or African regimes where they use killing as a method to eliminate their opponents. Unfortunately, that's happened with the 47 people who have been executed a couple of weeks ago without due process. So this is the first time they have done something like this with a big number. So the human rights violation, the biggest human rights violation is detainees and immigrants' rights. These are the two of the biggest human rights violation. And the way I look at the Saudi system, I don't look at, so nobody has the rights. The discrimination is against everyone, regardless if you are from the majority Sunni or from the minority Shia, regardless if you are man or woman. So there we have a lot of women actually in the Shura Council, and they are part of the oppressing system. They are part of the regime, and we have a lot of minority too within the system. So the system could accommodate anyone, which is unique. However, you have to agree with its oppression nature. So these are the biggest human rights violation. The international relationship, I think here what we could do, what we have. I worked in lobbying in Europe for a while in relation to campaigns for human rights. I was depressed by how nobody wants to say anything about human rights in Saudi because of the money involvement. At one stage, I was participating in panel, and one of the member of parliaments in the Netherlands, he said, yes, it's fine to have a double standard in Saudi. So we don't work in human rights in Saudi because we have business interests. So unfortunately, we have some hypocrite governments in the West who support violations of human rights for the interest of business for the business interest. I would like to mention something about how extremists in Saudi. So Wahhabism is not the reason we have the violence in the world. We have the violence in the world started in the 70s by the support of Reagan administration and the Saudi government at that time, and they sent people to Afghanistan. So they have sent them, some of them is actually from Egypt, which they have nothing to do with Wahhabism, but they have suffered a lot and had been tortured in the prison of Jamal Abdel Nasser for a while, and the Sadat. So I think we have more extremists in the West than in the Arab region. However, there are differences between extremists and people who use weapons. So violence is not accepted from anyone. So to stop violence, we have to stop the injustice. Our issue in the region is the injustice. So you cannot, if you make people silent, and if you put them in prison for a while and torture them, don't expect them to be very peaceful. You created them through violence. State violence created group violence. So to end all of that, I think I would be happy to have anyone extremist or whatever, as long as they are not using violence. So they are a group of parties actually in Europe who are very extremist, but they could represent themselves, and sometimes they will take the government. So the way forward, to conclude my talk, is to focus on how to develop reform in the Middle East and how to support justice for all, regardless of their background or any other things. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. Let's see, is this one better? So we have a little bit of time for Q&A. I also want to let people know that this is all being recorded by our friends at The Real News, therealnews.com. Thank you, Real News. It's being live streamed, and it will be available afterwards as well. So we're going to have a little time for Q&A. And let's see, raise your hands if you want to say something. Let's see if if your mics there work. If not, we'll pass one around to you. So let's start here, and these are really quick because we don't have time. We'll take a couple.
So in 1990, before the United States put 500,000 troops on Saudi soil, Cheney and Schwarzkopf flew to speak to the king with a satellite photo that he said showed American troops amassed on the border. Gene Hiller, Iraq. Gene Hiller from the St. Petersburg Times got a hold of a Soviet satellite which showed that there were no troops amassed on the border.
Let's make it quick.
And I'm wondering if you have any information about that history, and I understand that the satellite photo is still classified.
Well, you know, the United States has always worked on differences between certain countries in the Middle East to gain advantage and to sell weapons and to start wars. In fact, most of the wars that has been carried on by the United States were done on behalf of the Saudi monarchies. So American soldiers were they were killing and dying in the Middle East to serve the Saudi and other monarchies in Kuwait or Saudi Arabia. And one of the most interesting things here, people always talk about the Wahhabis. In that time, when they spoke to King Fahd in 5 minutes decided, bring 600,000 troops. He didn't consult, quote unquote, the Wahhabi clerics, because the Saudi government, religious establishment, are mere employees. So I agree with Abdulaziz. This is Wahhabism itself, or the original Wahhabism, or people's Wahhabism, has nothing to do with state Wahhabism. The state Wahhabism is done to support and protect the Saudi monarchy, not to protect the people. And that's why we need to return that faith of any kind, even those we disagree with, to the people. So the state cannot hijack it. And that was an example of how there was cooperation between some people, some quarters in the United States, and people like King Fahd, who decided without the people's choice, without anybody's being in the room, without consulting with even his own brothers, decided that, yes, the United States could come and bring its thousands of soldiers. In fact, in defiance of what Wahhabism is, because Wahhabism does not allow you to use non-Muslim troops against a Muslim adversary, but because this is about the monarchy, it's not about the faith.
Thank you. Let's see, we have a back there if you use your mic here. No, press it down.
I am pushing
Hold it
the button.
down.
Can you hear me? I have a question from Mr. Al-Hussan. And I have a problem with a couple of things that you had stated. And I wanted to know, you stated that the Saudi government doesn't have to go, the Saudi family doesn't have to go. We can partially, we can manage with some of them still being there. How can you tell an addict who has been using drugs for years to use them a little bit? You know, and at the same time, you went on at the later part of your talk, I felt to defend Wahhabism in some way to say that that was not part of the Egyptian group, etc., which got in influence of the Egyptian movement was not from there. But there is a lot of evidence to show that it was.
Okay, to answer your first question, we have through histories, different absolute monarchies have been transferred to limited monarchy. So what I propose is I have written some articles about that, is to have some kind of limited monarchy. So it's not easy for someone in control to say to him or to her, give power, but there has to be some movements. But the idea that to offer through a government where you don't have any civil society organization, you don't have any replacement of it, it's just bizarre. It just, you know, our job as a human beings is not to destroy things, but to reform things. If something could be done to reform it, yes, we could be. The Saudis are not listening to us up to now. They don't want to reform, just to be clear about that. They don't want to be reformed until now. However, we will stay to say we want to reform until if they collapse by themselves, that's done. It's their job, it's not our job. It's not our job to destroy governments, it's our job to reform. That's the first question. In regard to second questions, I'm not sure I get what you ask about, but to elaborate a little bit about what I said, I am saying is many people blame Wahhabism as for creating violence in the world. However, Wahhabism is not the main factor here. The main factor is injustice has been done by different Arab regime against their people. And these individuals, these extremists, there are two of them. Some extremists, I have represented some of them, and I will still represent some of them. I will represent anyone to defend their rights as a human beings, regardless of what they believe in, regardless of what they think the things. The most important things, they don't use violence. So many governments, for example, we have around 15 to 20,000 people in prison. The Saudi government saying they have used violence. There is no way all of these people have used violence. I agree with them, maybe 30, 40, maybe 100 people of them have used violence, and they should deserve justice, due process, and whatever the government, fair government decide, that's fine. But to manipulate the issue and say it's just about this kind of religious or that kind of religious, explain to me how we have now more terrorist act by non-Wahhabism, like the militia is supported by Iran. Is killing machine just for names. If your names means you are Sunni in Iraq, you will be killed by this militia. These are terrorist group. I don't like to use the word terrorist, but they are violence group. Are using violence against their opponents while they are not Wahhabism. Wahhabism is just part of the issue. The main issue, the injustice.
I just wanted to add to this is, the problem is not, because this is, Wahhabism is a manifestation, it's a local manifestation of religion. You disagree with it, you have the right to do that, But, and I'm not, I'm not part of that group. So I'm just making sure that we know the problem is not an extreme interpretation of religion. The problem is a political power that's called the Saudi monarchy that's using and usurping that interpretation of Islam. It could be wrong, in my opinion, in your opinion, but it is that power. If we take that element, that political power from existence, I don't think that we'll have that problem anymore.
So just a quick announcement. When you talk, you need to push the button till it goes green, and you need to talk into the microphone, even if you can't bring the microphone closer to yourself. But the microphones do work.
All right, so we got to be quick because we only have a couple more minutes. Over there, yes.
Good morning.
Is the green light on? Did you push the button?
Yeah.
So speak into the microphone.
Speak real close.
Good morning, everyone. And my name is Ziad Al-Shammari. I am a PhD student at Howard University in political science. Knowledge is having information. Intelligence is ability to use your advantages. Wisdom is begin yourself in a process. You mentioned that the main statement in this room is injustice in Saudi Arabia. I think injustice here is to say something bad about the Saudi Arabia law because this is the law of Saudi Arabia. And I hope you really respect my point as I respect yours. My questions to you, all of you, not only the speakers, just think about what's happened after Arab Springs. Why Arab monarchies is survive and the others is collapsed? Because the regime is beloved by their people. You cannot say something bad and the facts is still the Arab monarchy is survived. And thank you so much.
Oh, the mic. Hello.
Thank
And
you.
If you could sum up.
Yes, thank you. Your question is about the Arab Spring, how is the Saudi monarchy state? As I said, there are different between the Arab regime and the Saudi. The Saudi use soft oppression. They stayed in powers because people have demand reform, but they are more patient than the other Arab region. When you didn't see it, we have seen a lot of protests in Riyadh, Buraida, Eastern Province, Qatif, and Jeddah too. Abha too for Saudi female students there. So people are angry in Saudi. However, they don't want revolution. That's the difference between the people. At least from my understanding, the majority of people who have seen them in the social media, they don't want revolution. They want reform. We have seen that in the Twitter, for example, in 2011, 12, 13. The Arab Spring has not ended yet. Saudis, UAE have supported the counter-revolution in Cairo, in Tunisia, in other places, but it's just the first step. We are in the first step now, just 5 years. We still have 30 years to go. So what will happen to that region? From my understanding, we have a third route. There is revolution, there is counter-revolution. The third route is to start a reform, and I think the best place to start a reform in is Riyadh because of the high influence. So if we start reform in Riyadh, from that point of view, we have other reforms in the GCC and the other Arab countries.
I think there's 2 points here, saying that the Arab monarchies are beloved by their people. Well, have you seen the protests in Bahrain? I mean, I think that in Bahrain, the largest percentage in the world, I think in 2013, about 400,000 people marched. That is 60% of the population, peacefully, to demand democracy. That didn't happen. In terms of Saudi laws, who made these laws? Is it the people? No, it's the monarchy. And if the monarchies are beloved by their people, why haven't the monarchy allowed them to prove that by giving people a choice by voting? Then you can say, then they can prove it. I said this to Bandar bin Sultan. He said, oh, the people love us. I said, prove it. Let them cast a vote. Prove me wrong. Let them vote. And they won't. The Saudis won't even let us choose a local council that decides then how long and how wide the pavement. They would not even allow us to do that. And that tells you that they don't want us as people. And it's important. I always said to the American government, you always says, oh, the monarchy, the king. Where is the people? The people here is the center. Like Dr. Al-Ahmed, again, I repeat this. The people are the rulers. They are wali al-amr. الشعب هو ولي الأمر. And then that is the principle what Islam and all civilization, modern civilization, basing their political rule on, the people choice. And they can do that by, not on Twitter, by voting.
Thank you. I think that's a great way to end this session. And let us thank our two speakers. They will be available for interviews. I know some people want to do some individual interviews, but let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you so much. And I want to introduce the moderator for our next session because she is the co-founder of CODEPINK and one of the most wonderful activists that I have ever met, and I'm so honored to have the privilege of working with her. I also want to thank Tig Barry, who's here filling the water, who has done so much work to make this happen. Allie McCracken, who I don't see. We have a whole bunch of people we're going to thank later, but Jody is really an amazing, amazing activist, and I thank her so much for the over a decade of collaboration that we have had together, which has just been a total joy.
Thank you, Medea. And how lucky am I, this partnership with Medea, and how amazing is this conference she's put together. So I'm going to bring up our next speakers.